She was holding his hand when I walked in. Not discreetly, not under the table. Right there, in a restaurant full of people. She saw me before he did. I watched her face change in real time, the smile disappearing, the shoulders pulling back, the specific expression of someone whose plan has just stopped working.
Nathan.
Busy night? I said. Behind me, I heard Lily's voice.
Dad? Who's that man with Mom?
Everything after that moved very slowly. Chapter 1. The 4 days. Claire had been in Chicago for 4 days. Marketing conference, she said. Same kind of trip she'd taken twice before. Nothing unusual on the surface. I drove her to the airport Sunday morning, helped with her bags, told her to have a good week. She texted that first night. Short, efficient. Fine, busy, talk later. After that, the replies came slower, more scattered. The kind of communication that looks like someone who's distracted by work but feels like someone who's managing distance deliberately. I didn't push it. I don't push things. But I noticed. Saturday morning, I made pancakes for the kids. Lily sat at the kitchen counter, drawing hearts on a napkin, swinging her legs. Jake was at the table, phone face down, quieter than usual. Lily looked up.
Why is it so quiet? Mom plays music in the morning.
She's not here, I said.
But it's different quiet.
She wasn't wrong. I looked at both of them across the counter and made a decision. How would you feel about flying out to see her today? Lily froze mid-doodle.
Like, right now? Today?
We booked tickets. Fly out. Surprise her at dinner. Jake looked up from the table. Something shifted in his face. Not excitement, more like calculation. She's working. People take breaks from work to have dinner, I said. We show up, take her out. Simple. You didn't tell her we were coming. It's a surprise. He held my gaze for a second. Okay. That was enough. I booked the tickets 20 minutes later. Chapter 2. The hotel. The flight was smooth. Lily talked the entire time. Jake stayed quiet, watching the city come into view through the window as we descended. Claire texted once while we were in the air.
Schedule packed today. Meetings all morning, dinner with clients tonight. Miss you guys.
I read it twice. Dinner with clients. At the hotel, I left the kids in the lobby seating area and walked to the front desk alone. Claire Reed, I said. She checked in earlier this week. Can you tell me if she's in her room? The receptionist typed, paused. She's not in her room right now. She has a reservation at a restaurant nearby. It's listed under her name. Which restaurant? She told me. I thanked her and walked back to the kids.
Where is she?
At dinner, I said. Perfect timing. Jake stood up. With who? Clients, I said. That's what she told me. He didn't respond, but I saw the question stay in his face. We dropped our bags in the room and took a cab straight there. The restaurant wasn't casual. Glass front, low lighting, the kind of place people choose when they want to make an impression. We pulled up and I paid the driver. Stay close, I said. Inside, the host asked for a reservation. I'm looking for someone, I said. Claire Reed. He checked. Yes, she's here. Table in the back. I turned to the kids. Wait here. I'll go get her. I'm coming with you. Wait here, I said again. He stepped back. I walked toward the back of the restaurant. And that's when I saw her. Chapter 3. The Table. Claire was at a corner table. Low light. 2 glasses of wine, one half full, one almost empty. No laptops, no folders, no sign of a business meeting. Just one man across from her. Tyler, mid-30s, jacket off, sleeves rolled, the posture of someone completely at ease with where he was. Claire was leaning forward, smiling the way I hadn't seen in a while. Not the polite version she wore at work events, not the tired version she brought home on long weeks. Something more personal than both of those. Her hand was on the table. His hand was over it. I stopped walking. Watched. A waiter stepped between them to place a bottle. Small interruption. Tyler said something. Claire laughed. Controlled. Familiar. Then she squeezed his hand when the waiter turned away. I moved closer. Heard her say,
You worry too much. No one's going to.
She stopped. She saw me. Everything in her face shifted in 1 second. Nathan, she said. Tyler turned, looked at me, looked back at her. Busy night, I said.
What are you doing here?
I was about to ask you the same thing. She pulled her hand back.
This isn't what it looks like.
You're holding hands at dinner at a place like this, I said. So tell me what it looks like. She glanced around. People were starting to notice.
Lower your voice.
I'm not raising it. Tyler shifted in his seat. Is this? Stay out of it, I said, without looking at him. He froze. Claire stood up.
Nathan, why are you here? You didn't say you were coming.
I brought your kids, I said. That hit harder than anything else I could have said.
What?
They're at the front, I said, waiting to surprise you. For the first time, she didn't have a response ready. And then I heard Lily's voice behind me.
Dad?
I turned. She was standing just inside the dining area, Jake right behind her, both of them looking straight at the table. At Claire. At Tyler. At everything. Lily tilted her head.
Mom, who's that?
The room went very quiet around us. Chapter 4. What Tyler said. Claire looked at Lily, then at Jake, then back at me. She was calculating. I could see it, trying to find the version of this that still worked.
Hey, sweetheart. What are you doing here? This is a work dinner. A colleague.
Jake didn't move. You don't hold hands with colleagues. Silence. Tyler exhaled, stood up slowly. I think I should go. You should have thought of that earlier, I said. Claire shot me a look.
Nathan.
Tyler reached for his jacket. He didn't look at me. He looked at Claire. You said you were alone tonight. That landed like a stone.
Tyler, not now.
You said you told him you were in meetings all day.
He shook his head once.
I'm done.
He walked past us, straight to the door, no hesitation. Claire turned back to me, her voice sharper now.
You had no right to come here like this.
I brought your kids to see you, I said. I had every right.
This is not a conversation for in front of them.
Jake spoke before I could answer. Then why did you do it in front of him? He nodded toward the door where Tyler had just walked out. Claire flinched. Just slightly. But I saw it. Lily stepped toward her.
Mom, are you in trouble?
That was the moment. Not the hand-holding. Not the lie about dinner with clients. Not even Tyler saying she'd told him she was alone. That question. Claire opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I stepped in. Stay close, I said to the kids. We're leaving.
You're not taking them.
Watch me. Let's go, Lily. He took her hand and led her toward the door. She looked back at Claire twice, confused, trying to understand what had just happened. Chapter 5. Outside. Claire followed us out.
Nathan, stop. You're overreacting.
I turned around slowly. Overreacting.
You show up unannounced in the middle of a work dinner.
You were holding his hand, I said. Don't rewrite it.
It wasn't like that.
Jake again. Quiet. Direct. That's what it looked like. Claire looked at him.
Jake, you don't understand.
I understand enough. That shut her down. Lily tugged my sleeve.
Dad, are we staying with Mom tonight?
I shook my head. No. Claire stepped forward.
Nathan, we've been distant. You know that. This didn't just happen out of nowhere.
There it is, I said. Now it's my fault.
I didn't say that.
You didn't have to. She lowered her voice.
Let's go somewhere private. We can figure this out. We can still fix this.
I looked at her. You already figured it out, I said. You just didn't think we'd show up. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, turned it face down.
Please, she said, not like this.
I shook my head. Exactly like this. I turned to the kids. We're going back to the hotel. Get your things. We're flying home tonight. Claire stepped in front of me.
You're not taking them out of the city without talking to me first. Donald, don't do something we can't undo.
I held her gaze. You already did, I said. Then I walked past her. This time, she didn't try to stop me. Chapter 6. The Ride Back. The cab was quiet. Lily leaned against me in the back seat, still trying to process. Jake sat on the other side, looking out at the city lights, jaw set, older than 15 in that moment. Nobody asked questions. At the hotel, I went straight to the room. Grab your things, I said. We're leaving tonight.
But we just got here.
I know.
Are we not seeing Mom?
Not tonight. Jake was already packing. No argument, no hesitation. I stepped into the hallway and called the airline. First available flight home. Didn't think about the price, didn't think about anything except getting my kids out of that city. My phone started buzzing. Claire. I let it ring. A message came through.
Nathan, we need to talk before you make this worse. Please, I can explain everything. Don't do this to our family.
I read it once. Locked the phone. When I walked back into the room, Jake looked up from his bag. She texted you. Yes. You answering? No. He nodded. Good. Lily was sitting on the bed holding her jacket, drawing something on the hotel notepad.
Dad, is Mom mad at us?
No, I said. This isn't about you.
Then why are we leaving?
I looked at her. Because it's the right move. She accepted that. She always did. Chapter 7. Home. The house felt different when we got back. Not empty, just shifted. Like something had changed while we were gone and hadn't finished settling. Lily dropped her bag at the door and went straight to the kitchen. She grabbed her crayons and sat at the table like nothing had changed. Routine. Same as always. Jake didn't go to his room. He stood in the living room for a moment, then sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. I set the bags down. That night, I made dinner. Simple. Something they'd eat without questions. We sat at the same table, same seats, different atmosphere. After dinner, Lily brought me a drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. Me, her, Jake. Claire was off to the side. Smaller, faded.
I didn't have a pink marker, she said.
I looked at it for a second. It's good, I said. She smiled and taped it to the fridge. Jake watched that happen. Then he turned to me. Are you divorcing her? I didn't answer right away. I haven't decided yet, I said. That means yes. Not necessarily. She lied. In front of us. She didn't even look sorry. It's not your job to figure this out, I said. It's mine. He nodded, but I could tell he'd already made his own decision. That night, I checked my phone. No missed calls. No new messages. Claire hadn't reached out. Not to me, not to the kids. I set the phone down and turned off the light. That told me more than anything she could have said. Chapter 8. After. I messaged my lawyer 3 days later. Start the process. The response was fast. Documents, filings, the legal machinery of ending something that had already ended in a restaurant in Chicago. Claire tried calling once after she got the notice. I didn't answer. She sent messages, some calm, some not. My lawyer handled everything from that point. Custody stayed with me. That was the part that mattered. After a few months, it was finalized. The house stayed the same. The routine stayed the same. Claire was no longer part of it. She tried, at first. Messages, indirect contact through lawyers, occasional requests to see the kids. But it was inconsistent, too scattered. Nothing that rebuilt anything. Eventually, even that stopped. Lily asked about her less and less, until the questions stopped coming naturally. Jake never asked at all. One evening, while I was washing dishes, Jake came into the kitchen. She still hasn't called. No, I said. So what now? I rinsed a plate and set it down. Now we move forward. He watched me for a second. You're not waiting for her. No. He nodded, like he'd expected that, but needed to hear it said out loud. Lily came in holding her tablet.
I drew Mom again. Do you want to see?
I dried my hands and looked. 3 stick figures, same as before. But the space where Claire had been, no outline at all. Just empty white.
She's not mad anymore, right?
I paused. No, I said carefully. She's not mad.
Good.
She smiled and went back to her room. Jake looked at the drawing. Didn't say anything. That night, after they were both asleep, I sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet than the one that had started all of this. Not the silence of something missing. The silence of something finally stable. And that's how it stayed. That's where this story ends. Thank you for listening. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, leave a like, and turn on notifications. See you in the next one.